a bit of a rant. I'm seeing some real out of pocket comments and takes around this whole Tourette thing. I have spoken very warmly about the movie, I swear, which was one of my favourite movies of the year. I was lucky enough to hand Robert Aramayo his Critics Circle Awards award a couple of weeks ago on the 1st of February, as I am a member of Critics Circle and I work very closely with these titles all year round. And as I said, it was one of my favourite films of the year, and it remains one of my favourite films of the year. And the whole point of that film is to, find some kind of understanding to the Tourette problem. I'm someone who has, I not to give anything, not to involve myself more with this in a personal manner, but I have suffered a mild form of Tourette for a very long time, and it's not something that I have wanted to share. But I think if you haven't watched the movie and don't have no sort of horse in this or dog in the fight, as they say, maybe this isn't for you to sort of talk about and let other people speak about it. I think loads of people are really misunderstanding what Tourette means. They feel like as if John actually had the choice of not to say what he said and chose to say it. It's not how Tourette works. If you'd watched the movie, the very first scene of the movie is the character played by by Robert Aramayo, John, is being handed his very first award by the then Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth II, and it's like one of the greatest things that happened in his life, where he's being handed this award by the monarch of the country, and what he says is the absolute worst thing you could possibly say to the Queen, and everyone around him is horrified, but also some people laugh because you cannot help it. It's a tick, blurting out profanities and blurting out things that are not considered to be right is one of the symptoms of suffering from Tourette. Other people have different forms of Tourette, like the constant coughing, as we see in, I don't know if any of you listen or watch the H3 podcast, which is Ethan Klein's podcast, and Ethan is famously has a form of Tourette. His Tourette is not as pronounced as John's Tourette, is meaning he doesn't really have kind of swearing tics. His tics are coughing tics and physical tics, and you can really see it. I've been watching that podcast for many years, and sort of saw how Ethan has been talking about it. However, even Ethan had also a weird take on this, watching his show yesterday. So I haven't finished watching the show because I was getting really agitated and I didn't really want to carry on listening, because the takes that he was making were not, obviously he's someone who suffers from Tourette, so he is allowed to say what he said, and I encourage him to carry on. I'm sorry, this is getting really long, this video, but I'm going to carry on talking because it's a subject that's really close to my heart, as someone who I developed a mild form of Tourette because of my anxiety, and I think Tourette syndrome is very, very, very much linked to anxiety and where your brain literally short circuits and because you are so much under pressure. Patients some people who suffer from it are actually born with it straight away, and it manifests really quickly, very early on, at an early age. Others develop it later in life. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say. I am. It can't have been easy for you know, the actors to stand there and be called a name, and in such a huge show. You know, it's a BBC show, and the BBC didn't cut the word they were called, and I really hope that people have really looked after them and reassured them that it's not something that could have been helped. I also think John shouldn't have to sort of apologize for his illness. It's such a thorny subject, and there is no one way of looking at it. But some takes have been, as I say, completely out of pocket, and I encourage you to go and watch the movie, because it is an incredible movie and a godsend to anyone who suffers from Tourette's or who has a close family member that suffers from Tourette's. So, yeah, that's it. That's all I have to say, really. I mean, not to be too self-indulgent, and I'm not in a habit of divulging my own suffering or my own problems with these kind of things. And I generally, I don't think I've ever spoken about this publicly. Yeah, I think I might have done in my podcast when I Swear came out, and I spoke about it briefly, but it's not something I have divulged. You know, you learn to sort of mask, and but some people are able to mask more than others, and yeah, that's it. That's all I have to say. This is super, super, super long. I'm really sorry.